I think it was Eala is the match that I was looking at, and there was people like wrapped around the stadium just trying to get in, which is pretty crazy. And I mean, it's cool to see and it's exciting, but obviously, you know, for fan experience, I don't know because I'm not living that same experience. But hopefully, the event kind of continues.
Jessica Pegula, one of the most prominent figures in women's tennis today, has stepped off the baseline and into the spotlight for a very different reason, openly criticizing the Women's Tennis Association over its treatment of rising Filipina star Alex Eala, and she did not mince her words. Instead of discussing forehands and rankings, Pegula passionately defended a young player whose impact now stretches far beyond the court, emphasizing that Eala is not merely an emerging talent, but a cultural force who represents pride, ambition, and inspiration for the Philippines and for fans across Asia and the global tennis community, and that reality was on full display at the Australian Open, where supporters traveled thousands of miles, booking international flights, securing accommodations, and making genuine financial and personal sacrifices simply to watch her compete, creating an atmosphere rarely seen for someone at her stage of development. Yet despite this overwhelming, once-in-a-generation wave of support, the tournament schedule placed her on a smaller outside court unable to accommodate the very crowd she drew, a decision Pegula publicly questioned as short-sighted and dismissive of the commercial and cultural momentum Eala has generated, arguing that when a player proves she can fill seats and electrify a venue, the sport has a responsibility to recognize that star power rather than confine it, and at the heart of Pegula's frustration is a broader concern about opportunity, visibility, and respect for emerging stars who are expanding tennis into new markets and inspiring entirely new audiences, making the court assignment feel not just like a scheduling oversight, but a missed opportunity for the sport itself.
Fans that we're getting and making that still an enjoyable experience for them. But I did see some of the courts have like lines getting in and it seems really busy, and I saw some reports that it's some of their busiest.
Jessica Pegula did not soften her stance, calling the situation outright disrespectful, not only toward Alex Eala but toward the thousands of devoted supporters who traveled across continents to see her compete at the Australian Open. Fans who stood in long queues for hours only to discover the courts were too small to accommodate them, leaving many stranded outside the stadium after flying thousands of miles and sacrificing time and money just to witness their national hero in action. For Pegula, this was more than a scheduling oversight by the Women's Tennis Association. It was a symbolic slight, a message, intentional or not, that Eala did not yet belong on the sport's biggest stage, a message Pegula deemed not just inaccurate but insulting, especially after reports circulated that the tournament saw one of the largest and most electric crowds in its history. Energy-driven in significant part by Eala's presence, yet the very player responsible for that surge in attendance was denied a court capable of matching the moment. Pegula openly questioned why a rising star bringing unprecedented attention from across Asia was not rewarded with greater visibility, and she even hinted that discomfort within tennis leadership about Eala's meteoric popularity might be influencing such decisions, a troubling notion considering she is expanding the sport into new markets long sought by organizers. And the criticism did not end there, because Novak Djokovic also stepped forward, praising Eala as the greatest player the Philippines has produced and asserting she deserves full respect, suggesting that the handling of her scheduling may have compounded the challenges she faced. And when a figure of Djokovic's stature speaks so directly, it transforms the issue from fan frustration into a serious conversation within the highest levels of professional tennis about recognition, opportunity, and whether the sport is truly prepared to embrace the global wave Eala represents.
Things like that happen. I mean, it's you could argue that it was, maybe a poor schedule and maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court. Yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through. I saw the other day with Alex Eala, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's a big interest.
And here is the deeper issue. This did not feel like a one-time scheduling mistake, but part of a troubling pattern that has followed Alexandra Eala throughout her rise on the Women's Tennis Association Tour, including a controversial moment during the Australian Open qualifiers when, in the middle of a crucial rally, she struck a ball that was visibly inside the line, clear enough to leave a mark, only for it to be called out. And rather than correcting the call in her favor, officials ordered the point to be replayed entirely, a decision that raised eyebrows because tennis protocol typically demands a definitive in or out ruling rather than a do-over. Yet instead of unraveling under pressure, Eala calmly approached the chair umpire, looked them in the eye, and firmly stated, "I know what you are doing," a composed but unmistakable declaration that she would not be intimidated or rattled. And then she returned to the baseline and won the match anyway, ultimately advancing all the way to the final round of qualifying, a display of resilience and mental steel that underscored why so many believe she is built for the highest level, proving that even when adversity, controversy, and questionable calls threaten to shift momentum, her response is not complaint but competition, not retreat but resolve. The concerns only intensified during her clash with Iga Swiatek, a multiple Grand Slam champion and one of the most dominant forces in modern women's tennis, because for Alexandra Eala, even stepping onto the same court was a milestone. Yet in the middle of that high-stakes battle, just as she was building momentum, an official interrupted the match to question items in her backpack, creating an unexpected scene at a pivotal moment that disrupted her rhythm and raised eyebrows about timing and intent. And when this episode is viewed alongside the earlier small court assignment at the Australian Open and prior officiating controversies, it forms a troubling pattern that reflects poorly on the Women's Tennis Association, suggesting that one of the sport's most exciting and marketable young stars has not consistently received the platform, protection, or respect her impact warrants. Prominent voices like Jessica Pegula and Novak Djokovic have publicly recognized the imbalance, echoing what millions of fans already feel, that Eala, whose global following continues to surge, deserves equitable treatment befitting a player reshaping tennis reach across Asia and beyond. And regardless of administrative missteps, she has made it clear through resilience and performance that she is not merely a prospect but a phenomenon in the making, leaving the pivotal question of whether the WTA will evolve quickly enough to fully embrace and support the global movement she represents.